We gather here to discourse on the significance of the Battle of Antietam, a confrontation that marked the annals of our nation with blood and valor, the single bloodiest day in American history.
The battle, fought on Maryland soil, was the Confederacy's bold stride for independence, aiming to secure foreign recognition and sway Northern opinion in our favor. Yet the soil drank deep of Southern blood, a testament to the valor of our men.
For the Union, Antietam was not just a battle. It was a desperate struggle for survival. This victory, though costly, breathed new life into our cause, enabling us to continue the fight for the preservation of the Republic.
Indeed, leading to Antietam, events such as the Second Battle of Bull Run set the stage, with Lee's Maryland campaign being a gambit that brought these forces to clash.
The invasion of Maryland was not just a military maneuver, but a declaration. We sought to prove our resolve and our capability to not only defend our territory, but to bring the conflict to our adversary's doorstep.
Yet, it was your discovery of Special Order 191 Lee that undid the Confederate attempt at surprise, placing your forces at a fatal disadvantage before both sides even met on the field.
Our movements were guided by providence and strategy alike. The loss of those orders did indeed shape the engagement, yet valor and righteousness drove our forces to stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds. The aftermath of these preludes was a contest so fierce and so decisive that it marked a turning point in the war, setting the stage for the Union's eventual triumph and the abolition of the inhumane institution of slavery.
Let it not be forgotten, the battle's significance extended far beyond the immediate military outcome. It altered the course of international politics, quelling any hope the Confederacy might have held for foreign intervention.
While Antietam did not yield the conclusive victory we sought, it demonstrated the indomitable spirit of the Confederates, fighting for our beliefs and our way of life against insurmountable odds.
And in its wake, the Emancipation Proclamation was issued, giving new meaning to our struggle and ensuring that the battle for the Union was also a battle for liberty and justice.
As we proceed, let us delve deeper into these aspects, understanding that through such discourse we may discern the truths of that monumental conflict and the indelible mark it left on the fabric of our nation. 'Tis a discussion most necessary, for the shadows of Antietam stretch long and cast their form over the shape of our current Union, reminding us of the cost of freedom and the price of conviction. Let's commence with a discussion on the strategic significance of Antietam in the wider context of this great and terrible conflict. Sherman, your views on how Antietam altered the Confederacy's hopes for outside intervention.
Antietam, sirs, was the anvil upon which the hopes of Confederate aid from Europe were shattered. The Union's stance held fast, demonstrating resolve that made clear to foreign powers that this nation was not to be parted by rebel hands. It was a war for the Union's survival, and Antietam underscored our unyielding commitment.
General Sherman mistakes a failure for a finality. While Antietam did prevent immediate foreign recognition, the valor shown by Confederate forces that day proved to the world that our cause was just and our resolve strong. It was not the blow to our aspirations, he believes, but rather a testament to our resilience.
Resilience, General Lee, or a missed opportunity for your Confederacy? Antietam provided the Union a strategic opening, allowing President Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. This transformed the war's complexion, elevating it from a mere rebuke to secession to a crusade for human liberty.
This proclamation ye speak of, General Grant, was but a political maneuver. It shifted just as the winds do, yet Antietam's outcome hindered its effect. With both sides claiming some manner of victory, it did little to demoralize the Southern spirit, or so was our conviction.
General Jackson speaks with his usual acuity. The proclamation indeed shifted the war's nature, but failed to recognize the indomitable spirit of the South. Antietam, while preventing our envisioned triumph on Northern soil, hardly spelled our defeat. It but prolonged the struggle.
Yet it cannot be denied that your failure to secure a decisive victory, General Lee, presented the Union the very opportunity it required. Europe turned its gaze elsewhere, and the Union, under President Lincoln's guidance, fortified its moral high ground. In every measurable sense, Antietam served as a pivot in our favor.
A pivot, perhaps, but the war marched on. My men displayed courage and fortitude in the face of overwhelming odds. That day and those that followed were filled with acts of valor that history shall long recount, regardless of foreign intervention or presidential decrees.
Indeed, the valor shown by both sides is beyond dispute. However, the shift in international sentiment and the proclamation did alter the course of our war significantly. The strategic implications of Antietam resonate beyond the battlefield itself, influencing the very fibers of our national and international existence.
Precisely, General Meade. Antietam, in its carnage, brought clarity. It underscored the Union's resolve, not only to itself, but to the world. The Confederacy's hope for a foreign hand reached in vain, and the course of our internal conflict took a decisive turn toward justice.
Let us remember, gentlemen, that the war was fought on many fronts and its outcomes hinged on countless variables. While Antietam may have shifted perspectives and aims, the bravery and sacrifice of those who fought should never be overshadowed by political outcomes.
Indeed, General Lee, we fought for what we believed was just and right under God's watchful eye. Antietam's significance cannot be distilled into a single consequence, but it marked a moment when the resolve of all was tested and proven. Gentlemen, your insights affirm the complexity of Antietam's legacy. Its strategic significance is vast and multifaceted, encompassing military, political, and moral dimensions. This battle, bloody and grim as it was, indelibly marked a turning point in our nation's history. Let us proceed, with respect for the valor of those who fought and the gravity of its consequences. We now pivot our discussion to the vital role of intelligence and reconnaissance at Antietam. The discovery and loss of Special Order 191 was a pivotal moment. Longstreet, your thoughts on this calamity?
It was a blunder of the highest order. That our plans were laid bare to McClellan's forces was a grievance not easily overlooked. Yet it underscores the war's unpredictable nature and the role fate plays in our endeavors. A document lost, and thus opportunity lost, yet we fought on with the valor that defines us.
Indeed, the Confederacy's misstep was the Union's gain. Yet, lest we forget, intelligence in war is as much about the use of information as its acquisition. McClellan's hesitance, even when armed with our strategies, shows the limitations not of intelligence, but of resolve.
It falls upon us to remember the providence of God plays its part in the affairs of men. The loss of the orders might have been a blow, yet it was each man's heart and resolve on the field that determined the day. Our faith and our valor stood firm against the uncertainty brought forth by this mishap.
The misfortune of Special Order 191's discovery indeed altered the landscape of our engagement. However, it also brought to light our adaptability and resolve. The Union might have known our movements, but not our spirit nor our determination.
Adaptability and intelligence are the sinews of warfare. The Union's discovery of Lee's orders presented a rare advantage, one that undoubtedly influenced the outcome at Antietam. However, it also reflects upon the need for decisiveness in command. Intelligence is fleeting. What matters is the expedience and vigor with which it's acted upon.
Indeed, gentlemen, the caprices of war extend beyond the mere movement of troops and clashing of arms. The role of intelligence, or the lack thereof, shapes not just the strategies, but the very outcome of battles. The loss and finding of the Confederate orders at Antietam is a testament to this immutable aspect of war. Our next point of discussion. Let us turn our attention to the role of terrain and geography on the outcomes at Antietam. Stonewall, your force was known for exploiting terrain. Speak on the creek's defensive boon. Antietam Creek, by God's providence, offered us a formidable natural barrier against the Union's advance. Its banks, steep in places, served as the bulwark for our men. High ground near the Dunker Church allowed us to observe and fire upon the enemy approach. Terrain is akin to the musket in a soldier's hand. It must be wielded rightly and with godly wisdom.
And yet Stonewall, that did not secure victory. The Union, too, had men of acumen who turned the land to their advantage. Burnside's bridge, though a choke point defended by a handful of your men, eventually fell. It showcases how terrain can also dictate the rhythm of an engagement. It can stall the advance of an army as easily as it can protect it.
True, terrain dictated the battle's flow. But let us not forget, it was not merely the physical landscape that challenged us, but our understanding and utilization of it. The right flank, softened by the terrain, was exposed due to miscommunication and misjudgment of the Union forces' capability to maneuver. Terrain is but one variable in the equation of victory.
The creek and the high ground gave us the means to stand firm against a foe superior in numbers. Yet the land itself offers no promises of victory. It is the general's task to read such advantages rightly and to act upon them with both boldness and caution. Our failures were not in the land, but perhaps in our command, to use it to our fullest advantage.
There is truth in thine words, General Lee. The Almighty has made the earth upon which we contest, but he leaves it to men to discern its secrets. Our engagement at Antietam, though not yielding the victory we sought, demonstrated the pivotal role of understanding terrain in warfare.
Oftentimes we hear of how battles are won by numbers or strategy, but the earth beneath our feet is as much a participant in the strife as the men who march upon it. Let us remember the lessons from Antietam's fields and creeks, for they teach us that the soldier's keenest ally or greatest foe might well be the ground on which he stands. Let us discuss the commander's decisions and leadership styles at Antietam. General Lee, commence with thine audacious tactics in Maryland.
The decision to invade Maryland, gentlemen, was born of strategic necessity and audacity, qualities requisite in the art of war. We sought not only to relieve Virginian soil of the travails of war, but to deliver a blow that might encourage foreign recognition. Splitting the army was a calculated risk, essential for maneuver and surprise, aimed to encircle and defeat the enemy on their own turf.
General Lee's boldness was matched only by his faith in us, his lieutenants, and in the righteousness of our cause. 'Tis the mark of true leadership to inspire such confidence and zeal. In the field, decisive action and the courage to seize the moment are what separates victory from defeat.
Yet, one might argue that caution has its place on the battlefield as well. General McClellan, though criticized for his hesitance, preserved his forces, preventing a complete rout. There's merit in cautious advance, especially under the fog of war.
Cautious advance? Sir, such indecision let many a moment for conclusive victory slip through the fingers. McClellan's hesitancy allowed my force, split and vulnerable, to reunite and contest another day. Aggression, when the enemy is at a disadvantage, can bring about the end of conflict swiftly, sparing many lives in the grand scheme.
I must interject with respect to General Lee. The very essence of warfare demands aggressiveness. McClellan's lack of conviction at Antietam showcased a failure to grasp the opportunity, precisely why later strategies evolved towards total war. Your sanctimonious stance afforded the Union the time to regroup and strengthen. True leadership does not merely lie in being audacious, but in recognizing and seizing the crux of victory when it presents itself.
The debate on audacity versus caution is as ancient as war itself. Yet we must not overlook that each battle dictates its own terms. At times, Lee's audacity served us well. At others, it led to grievous losses. The wisdom lies in discerning when to strike hard and when to withhold. Leadership is not about one size fits all. It's about adapting to the face of the enemy and the dance of battle.
Adaptation, yes, but let us never forsake the principle of audacity in action. It is not merely for the sake of audacity, but audacity grounded in faith. Faith in our cause, in our men, and in our eventual triumph.
Leadership, then, is multifaceted, demanding audacity, caution, and adaptability in equal measure. Our discussion has illuminated the complexities of command decisions during the heat of battle. Let us remember, the consequences of these decisions echo far beyond the battlefield. Let us now turn our attention to the role and impact of artillery during the Battle of Antietam. General Sherman, would you care to start?
Artillery, gentlemen, delivered hellfire upon the enemy. At Antietam, our cannons were the great equalizers, capable of breaking the stoutest of lines before our boys in blue even shouldered their rifles. Our bombardment softened up those Confederate positions significantly, paving the way for the infantry.
Yet, General Sherman, I must interject. Our Confederate artillery played no small part in the dance of death that day. Despite facing ammunition supply issues, we gave as good as we got, sir. The problem, as ever, was not with the courage of our gunners, nor the quality of our guns, but the sheer scarcity of supplies.
That's the crux of it, General Lee. Our artillery could have turned the tide more decisively, if not for those blasted supply issues. Ammunition shortages hobbled us at the most inopportune moments, preventing a sustained defense.
A lack you were keenly aware of, yet persisted in your aggression. Perhaps a more cautious approach might have preserved your scarce resources better.
General Sherman, might I remind you that the moral effect of artillery cannot be measured solely by supplies and logistics. The thunderous roar of our guns bolstered the spirits of our men and struck fear into the hearts of yours. At the Cornfield, the chaos wrought by our cannons was a sight beheld, marking the might of the Lord's judgment upon the battlefield.
Let's not forget, the effectiveness of artillery is as much about the men behind the guns as the guns themselves. Antietam showed us that. Where your supplies lacked, General Longstreet, our logistical capabilities ensured our artillery remained a relentless force throughout the battle.
Indeed, the role of artillery at Antietam was profound, affecting not just the physical, but the psychological aspects of the battle. Each side leveraged their capabilities with commendable skill, despite the challenges faced. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we move on?
Only that the bravery of the men serving those guns on both sides should not be forgotten amidst our discussion of logistics and tactics. Their valor was unmatched.
Amen to that, General Lee. The hand of Providence guides the flight of every shell. We did our duty as we saw fit, leaving the outcome to a higher power.
And let's never forget the cost. Every cannonball fired, every burst of grape and canister took sons from their families, husbands from their wives. The artillery at Antietam, indeed throughout the war, was a fearsome specter of modern warfare's grim efficiency.
Well said, gentlemen. The impact of artillery at Antietam is a clear testament to its evolution as a pivotal arm of military power. Let's proceed to the next topic of our discussion. We now turn our attention to the brutal encounters at the Cornfield, Sunken Road, and Burnside's Bridge. Gentlemen, your analysis on these pivotal confrontations will be invaluable. General Lee, begin us with your perspective on the Sunken Road.
The Sunken Road, or what the men now call Bloody Lane, proved the mettle of our Southern forces. Defensively, the road offered a natural trench from which we could rain fire upon the advancing Union devils. Yet it turned into a slaughterhouse, the earth itself so saturated with blood it could take no more. It was a testament to the ferocity of the Union assault, and I confess, a misjudgment on my part in anticipating their resolve.
While I can appreciate the strategic value of a natural trench, General Lee, it begs the question of the effectiveness of such a position when outnumbered and surrounded. At the Cornfield, the sheer tenacity of the Union forces, repeatedly advancing through hellish conditions, underscores a fundamental truth. Positions can be held, but victory is secured by breaking the enemy's will.
General Sherman, there is value in holding one's ground if it affords the Lord's favor. The Cornfield became a whirlwind of musket fire and cannonade, a trial by fire that tested the resolve of every soul. It was not merely about breaking the enemy's will, but standing resolute in the face of overwhelming adversity. The valor displayed by our men, under divine providence, was the true measure of our cause.
Yet, we must not overlook the tactical errors that day. At Burnside's Bridge, a handful of our men held back Burnside's corps for hours, showcasing the importance of tactical positioning and the inherent flaws in Union leadership. However, we lacked the reinforcement to exploit this advantage fully. It's a stark reminder that valor and strategic positions must be complemented by timely support and resupply.
On that, we can agree, General Longstreet. The delay at Burnside's Bridge speaks volumes of missed opportunities. Had the Union forces pressed their advantage with greater vigor, the day might have concluded with a decisive victory. Leadership at times faltered under the enormity of the moment. Yet it is these moments of contention that shaped the course of the battle and with it, the war.
It's clear the key points of contention at Antietam, the Cornfield, the Sunken Road and Burnside's Bridge, were not merely physical locations, but symbolized the intense, often brutal, realities of warfare. Each location witnessed extraordinary acts of courage and strategic ingenuity, alongside significant bloodshed and missed opportunities. Such is the character of war, gentlemen. Let's proceed with our discussion, mindful of the sacrifices made by those who fought and fell on that bloodiest day of our history. Gentlemen, let us turn our attention to the Emancipation Proclamation, its conception post-Antietam, and its manifold impacts. General Grant, your thoughts?
The victory at Antietam gave President Lincoln the opportunity he needed. The Emancipation Proclamation was not merely a moral decree. It was a calculated strike at the Confederacy's backbone, its enslaved labor force. We seized an advantage, proving that our cause was righteous and just.
While the proclamation aimed to weaken our resolve, it only solidified the South's determination to defend our way of life. It was seen as an act of desperation, an attempt to incite servile insurrection, yet it failed to demoralize us as intended.
Desperation? Nay, it was strategy. Cutting off the Confederacy's economic legs and giving moral cause to our fight.
Morality? The proclamation did not free a single slave in the Union-held territories. This war is about states' rights, not slavery. The proclamation was a ploy, nothing more.
A ploy that worked, Jackson. It galvanized the North and kept Europe from recognizing the Confederacy. The proclamation was a masterstroke in the arena of international politics.
And yet, it deepened the chasm between our two sides, making reconciliation ever more elusive.
Reconciliation? The Union was never meant to be divided. The proclamation was a step towards unifying this nation under the principle of liberty for all.
And what of the soldiers? How did they perceive this widening aim of the war?
Many were energized, knowing they were fighting for freedom, not just union. It gave a higher purpose to our cause.
But not all saw it that way. There were those in the ranks who questioned why they were fighting to free the slaves. It was a contention, even in your own army, General Grant.
The proclamation indeed altered the theater of war, but it could not extinguish the valor and righteousness of our cause. We continued to fight with honor.
Valor? Righteousness? Your cause was built on the oppression of millions. The Emancipation Proclamation began the process of tearing down that abominable institution.
Let us not forget, the proclamation did not end the war immediately. It took years of further bloodshed and loss. The human cost continued to mount on both sides.
Indeed, General Longstreet. The proclamation was but one step in a long and arduous journey towards the realization of a nation built on the foundational principle that all men are created equal. This war, and all its battles, including Antietam, pushed us further down that path. Gentlemen, the toll of Antietam on human lives was unprecedented, forcing us to confront the realities of our medical capabilities. Let us deliberate on how this battle tested the limits of our field medicine and the personal toll it exacted. General Sherman, your observations?
The carnage at Antietam exposed the grim underbelly of our noble cause. Our surgeons, working round the clock, turned chapels and barns into makeshift hospitals. The use of anesthesia, chloroform, ether was a godsend. Yet the sheer number of amputations, the piles of limbs outside tents, speaks to the desperate measures we had to adopt. It was an inferno of suffering.
It's a hard reckoning, watching men you've commanded, men you've lived beside, turned maimed and disfigured by the surgeon's saw. But it's the scenes of men waiting their turn, knowing the saw was next for them, that chills the soul. Our medical services were stretched beyond belief, often with scant supplies. Each life lost, a dimming of the light of the Confederacy.
The Lord tests us in mysterious ways. Our surgeons, though valiant, faced a biblical trial at Antietam. But it's not just the physical scars. The psychological toll on those men, witnessing such scenes, breeds a silent wound that no surgeon can heal. We must never forget the spiritual and mental care our soldiers require alongside the physical.
A fair point, Jackson. The battlefield's horrors haunt many a soldier long after the guns fall silent. Our understanding of what we now might call the soldier's heart was rudimentary, but the need for compassionate care for these unseen injuries was glaringly apparent.
Yet, let us not overlook the remarkable advancements amidst this dark chapter. Triage, the practice of prioritizing injuries, saved countless lives. It forced a harsh but necessary discipline upon our medical corps. Our understanding of sanitation, though still in its infancy, was greatly accelerated by the necessities of war.
True, General Lee. The progression of medical practices under the harsh tutelage of war is undeniable, but the cost at which these lessons were bought was exorbitant. The spectre of Antietam will forever haunt the memory of this nation, a stark reminder of the price of our conflict.
I, Meade, the sheer number of the dead and wounded beggars belief. It compels us to confront not just the tactical and strategic outcomes of battles, but their human cost. Remembering each fallen man as more than a statistic is our solemn duty.
Indeed, Longstreet. Each soul lost at Antietam, and battles alike, demand of us a moment of reflection. Their sacrifice, their suffering, should kindle in us a fervent prayer for peace and reconciliation, in the hope that such devastation need not be visited upon this land again.
Gentlemen, let us delve into the mechanisms that sustained our operations during Antietam: logistics, supply lines, and communication.
It's no small task keeping an army fed, armed, and informed. The Union's superiority in railroads and telegraph played a critical part at Antietam and throughout the war. Our ability to move supplies and messages swiftly gave us a considerable advantage on the field.
Yet, General Grant, your logistical prowess could not prevent the rivers of blood at Antietam. The Confederate Army, though strapped for supplies, showed that valor and resolve can oftentimes offset disparities in material goods. Our lines, though thinly provisioned, held strong against your numbers.
Indeed, General Lee, the Almighty's providence and the righteousness of our cause sustained us. But let us not overlook the failures in communication that plagued both sides. Misinterpretations and delays in orders have led many a soldier to early graves.
Communications, while pivotal, are but one thread in the fabric of logistics. An army marches on its stomach, as Napoleon said, and our industrial might ensured our soldiers didn't starve. The Confederacy's lack of a comparable industrial base and rail network was a noose slowly tightening around its neck.
You speak of industrial might, Sherman, yet overlook the sheer tenacity required to overcome such deficiencies. Yes, the Union had its railroads and telegraphs, but the Confederate spirit attempted to compensate. That said, the blockades and disruptions did exact a toll on our ability to sustain prolonged engagements.
Tenacity, General Longstreet? Or was it desperation? The blockade suffocated the South. Your supply lines were constantly under threat, making any significant push into Union territory a logistical nightmare.
Grant, your blockade may have been a stranglehold, but never underestimate the ingenuity birthed by necessity. Our endeavors to run the blockade, to find alternate routes and means, speak volumes of Confederate resourcefulness.
And yet, without the necessary provisions, even the most well-laid plans and spirited troops falter. The importance of secure supply lines cannot be overstated. It is the lifeblood of an army, ensuring that arms, munitions, and rations reach the men who stand ready to do battle.
An army without provisions is nothing more than a mob soon to disperse. Our logistical capabilities allowed for sustained campaigns deep into enemy territory. Logistics and communication are the sinews of war, binding all else together.
Well, gentlemen, it seems we are in agreement on the critical importance of logistics, supply lines, and communication, however divergent our experiences and perspectives may be. They are indeed the backbone of military operations, determining the feasibility and success of engagements as significant as Antietam. Gentlemen, we gather to deliberate on the aftermath of Antietam, its immediate and long-term impacts on our Civil War, and indeed the whole of American society. Let us commence.
The repercussions of that battle reverberated far beyond the fields of Maryland. It was not just a victory or a defeat, but a defining moment that shifted the tide. The Union's morale soared, and the Confederacy was left to ponder what might have been. This was the moment the federal cause found its footing again.
Indeed, the battle's conclusion compelled us to withdraw to Virginia, yet it was neither an admission of defeat nor an end to our resolve. Antietam should be seen as a missed opportunity, yes, but not the downfall of the Confederacy. Our spirits were undaunted, our determination unshaken.
And let's not forget, gentlemen, the strategic importance of Antietam in the broader context. It provided President Lincoln with the victory needed to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. That proclamation not only changed the complexion of the war, but set the stage for a new chapter in American history. The Union was not just fighting to preserve itself, but to redefine its very essence.
The Lord moves in mysterious ways, and Antietam surely played its part in his divine plan. The battle's aftermath, including the Emancipation, challenged us to consider the moral fabric of our cause. It forced both sides to confront the iniquity of slavery head-on, a confrontation that was long overdue.
We must also consider the devastating loss of life, the blood spilt upon those fields. It was a harbinger of the further sacrifices that would be required before this war would end. Antietam did indeed shift the strategic momentum towards the Union, but at a terrible cost. Lives of great men, lost to the annals of history, serve as a grim reminder of war's true face.
And yet, it was these very sacrifices that galvanized the Union. The courage displayed by our soldiers at Antietam, fighting for the cause of liberty and union, bolstered our efforts in the subsequent campaigns. It was a clear signal to the Confederacy and the watching world that the Union would persevere, no matter the obstacles.
A costly signal, then. Yet a warrior knows that in war, the fortunes of a day can alter the outcome of campaigns, reshape the contours of strategy. While Antietam did not yield the victory we sought, it should not overshadow the valor and resolve demonstrated by the Confederate forces.
Valor and resolve, yes, but let us not mislay sight of the ultimate result. Antietam paved the way for Union victories that followed, ensuring that our nation would emerge from the crucible of war unified and stronger. The cost was dear, the sacrifice is monumental, but the cause was just and the outcome essential for our nation's prosperity.
So it appears, despite our disparate views, we concur on the profound significance of Antietam in altering the course of our struggle and indeed the trajectory of American history. As we remember those who fell, let us also acknowledge the indelible marks left on our nation's soul and the lessons learned for the betterment of future generations. We draw our discussion to a close with reflections on Antietam's legacy and its teachings for military strategy and leadership, alongside the inestimable human cost. General Sherman, your thoughts?
The swath Antietam cut through our ranks, both blue and gray, speaks to the savageness of war, not just in the physical, but in the scarring of the American psyche. This battle, while pivotal, laid bare the folly of underestimation and the critical need for decisive action. Our victory there, though bought at a high price, underscored the Union's resolve and perhaps illustrated the futility of the Confederacy's cause.
Sir, your words carry the weight of the victor's perspective, yet overlook the resilience and valor demonstrated by the Southern soldier, fighting for what they believed their rightful cause. Antietam, or Sharpsburg as we call it, while failing to secure a tactical victory, nonetheless exemplified the skill and audacity of Confederate arms. The withdrawal to Virginia was a strategic redeployment, not the acknowledgement of defeat. The struggle continued beyond Antietam, proving the indomitable spirit of our cause.
The Lord's will be done, on the battlefield as it is in heaven. Antietam tested our resolve, our faith, and our strategy. It underscored the significance of swift action, the element of surprise, and the moral imperative guiding our cause. Our losses speak to the destiny's harshness, yet our continued fight post-Antietam bore witness to our commitment to the Southern cause, irrespective of the emancipation or Northern aggression.
Antietam showed the paramount importance of logistics and reconnaissance. Had we better managed these, the outcome might have swayed more in our favor. It also highlighted the costs of war, not just in human lives, but in the spirit and future of the Confederacy. Each life lost was a blow to our capabilities and morale. We must remember Antietam for the lessons it imparts on strategy, the crucial role of intelligence, and the severe consequences of its absence.
Antietam opened the door to the Emancipation Proclamation, a decisive move that redefined the Union's war aims and moral trajectory. Strategy and tactics aside, this battle marked a turning point, rendering the Union's cause not just as one of preservation, but of liberation. The sacrifices made were steep, but they paved the way for a new dawn of freedom, proving that out of great turmoil can come profound transformation.
Antietam, with all its bloodshed and horror, forced us as a nation to confront the true cost of our division. It taught us bitter lessons about leadership, the imperative of aggressive action combined with strategic prudence, and the indelible mark of human loss. As we remember those who fell, let us also heed the lessons of Antietam, that unity and freedom are causes worth the utmost price, and that the future of our nation rests on our ability to learn from our past. May we proceed with a renewed commitment to these principles, honoring those who gave their all on that hallowed ground.